Shalom Rabotai. This Shabbat coming up to Shavuot, this is getting ready for Shavuot, the Hachana for Shavuot. I thought I'd share with you a quick, beautiful idea on Emunah, really the Hakdama to Matan Torah, the probably that has to come before Matan Torah, and also a very relevant Halacha when it comes to cooking on Yom Tov. So, first an idea I saw this week was really shocking, and how clear this is in the Gemara that seems so mystifying. One of the biggest questions in Emunah is asked by the Gemara. The Gemara says Moshe Rabbeinu asked the question. He asked the question, how come bad things happen to good people? And essentially, it's the thing we will constantly struggle. The way we often phrase that question is, how can bad things happen to me? But it's underlying every struggle in Emunah. We don't see Hashem. We don't clearly see Hashem in our lives. And it feels like we do the right thing, other people might do the right thing, it doesn't pay off. And that's what creates the struggle in everything that comes after that, of keeping Torah, everything that we do. In the back of our mind, someone whose Emunah is somewhat missing is always going to be struggling with this nekudah, having the strength to do things, really believing everything that he does is going to be for the best and he's going to be rewarded, and has a clear Emunah that everything Hashem does is for the good. So the Gemara asked this question, Moshe Rabbeinu asked this question. It's a question every normal human being will have, and obviously every child will have. And every father and mother has to know how to answer the kids and to help the kids manage this question. Says the Gemara says, what's the answer to the question, why do sometimes bad things happen to good people? Why do you have tzaddik veralo? Tzaddik, bad things happen to him sometimes. And the opposite, rasha vetovlo, sometimes the person's a rasha, he understands the Torah, he grew up, he knows the Torah, and even so doesn't keep anything, and he seems to lead a good life. Answers the Gemara, seems like a strange answer. It says tzaddik v'ralo. It's a person who's a tzaddik and bad things happen to him. This is because he's tzaddik, but he's ben rasha. He's the son of an evil person, and that's why bad things happen to him. And the opposite, the case of rasha v'tovlo, rasha and things are good for him, is because he's a rasha ben tzaddik. Has ancestors of tzaddikim, which seems to be a very strange answer. So if a person's a tzaddik, why should he suffer just because his parents were not tzaddikim? We have a rule actually that no one is punished for his parents' sins unless he carries on in their ways. And this tzaddik didn't carry on his parents' ways. Why would he be punished? And the opposite also true. This rasha, what zechut is he having from his parents? He doesn't follow anything that they do. Answers Khatam Sofer, says the Gemara. Many people take a Kabbalistic approach to it. He gives a very straightforward answer. He says the Gemara is literal. Tzaddik ben rasha. Says he's asking the Gemara, who is this person who's a tzaddik and he's ralo, and he feels he's complaining, his life is bad for him? Who's has met a tzaddik is constantly complaining, says things are bad, things are tough, I don't understand, things are bitter. Says that's not a regular tzaddik. That's a tzaddik ben rasha. That tzaddik must have been brought up by a rasha, meaning he was not brought up with the emunah, with the ingrained belief and knowledge and confidence that everything Hashem does is for the best. That's why he feels ralo, and regular tzaddik would never feel tzaddik for ralo. You, the outsider, observer, might see tzaddik or ralo, might seem like it's difficult for a tzaddik. But for tzaddik himself to be asking the question of ralo, things are bad for him, that has to be a tzaddik ben rasha. It must be his parents didn't ingrain with him this knowledge, this feeling that Hashem is taking care of him constantly, and everything that happens in his life is for the best. And the opposite is also true. Rasha betovlo. Which rasha is happy in his life? The Midrash says, Yesh lo maneh, rotze matayim. A normal person, if he's driven by his tavot, he's driven by his desires. Normally, a person's like that, he has a tava for maneh for 100, and the second he gets it, he'll want matayim, he'll want 200. He gets 200, he'll want 400. Desire only ever grows. How is this rasha happy? How is he How is he happy with whatever he has? It could be zarasha, it could be he wants things that aren't good for him, but he's happy with them. How is he happy? Says the Khatam Sofer, same answer. Rasha ben tzaddik. He grew up with a tzaddik's emunah, a tzaddik's bitachon, a tzaddik's knowledge that what Hashem gives him is good for him, and he doesn't have to look over his shoulder to look over other people. And even when he wants the bad things in life, at the end of the day, it's all built of a foundation of emunah. That's a person who could be rasha, and he feels happiness with the things that he has. But what's important for us is that is the tzaddik v'tovlo, the tzaddik v'ralo. This person, everything we teach our kids, everything we ingrain in our children, really will come out in the future. In the sense, no matter what they do, that education which they receive, that knowledge, that confidence from the parents, when the parents are constantly reinforcing this idea, not complaining, instead being thankful for everything they have, from the littlest thing to the big things, and passing down to the children, that's going to lead them the entire life to feel that way. So then the Gemara Berachot, that's exactly this point. The Gemara talks about Hillel and Daf Samech. Hillel walks into his city, he was away, he came back home, he hears some kind of scream, something bad happened in something, one of the houses inside the city. Hillel says confidently, Muftachani she'en ze betoch beti. I'm sure this couldn't have happened in my house. And all of our Mefarshim asked the question, how could Hillel know this would happen in his house? The tzaddik so sure nothing bad ever happens to the tzaddik? Well, what's Hillel sure about? So many Mefarshim answer, Hillel is sure that his family wouldn't react the way he was hearing people react. He wouldn't, the scream he heard, the desperation, the negativity with which what happened was taken, that wouldn't be the reaction of his family. That was Hillel's, well, that's what he was sure about. As they said, it couldn't be from his family. His family has different chinuch. They have emunah. Even when bad things happen, they don't totally lose their minds. They wouldn't be screaming the way that he was hearing the family was reacting. So that's really the hachana, the way to get ready for Shavuot, is this, ingraining this first of all in ourselves. So whatever we can. More anything else in our children. That's Anochi Hashem Elokecha, the first of the Ten Commandments is ingraining emunah in ourselves, understanding everything's for the good. Once we do that, the rest is easy. It's easy to say Na'aseh v'nishma. Of course, I'll say Na'aseh v'nishma. Everything Hashem does only for the good. If He tells me to do something, it's easy to do it because I know it's good for me. It's easy for me to wake up and say Kriyat Shema because I know it's good for me. And I see everything He does is good for me. That's a emunah that can almost only come from parents. If parents don't give it to you, even if you become a tzaddik later on, it's very hard to ingrain it in yourselves. To whatever extent that we can, try to ingrain it in ourselves, and even more, make sure our children get that kind of chinuch. Now, regarding the halacha, want to deal with a question that's very relevant. People like to cook on Yom Tov. On Yom Tov, the pasuk allows, unlike on Shabbat, you're not allowed to cook. A person's allowed to cook on Yom Tov if you have a pre-existing flame. You can leave the gas on sometimes. And you can cook on Yom Tov for things that you're going to eat on Yom Tov, of course. The problem with cooking on Yom Tov is the havara, using the fire. Maybe if you have a gas already lit, or you bring a lit match from somewhere else that's already lit, you can turn on the gas and turn on the fire, and you can make the fire bigger. That's havara, which is creating a fire. You like to do on Yom Tov for the sake of cooking. The problem is you can't turn it off. I think it's a fairly well-known halacha. How do you turn off the fire on Yom Tov? You can turn it off by putting a pot on the fire, letting the pot overboil, and then by the water coming out from the pot, it'll turn or make the fire under it turn off. That's called gerama. It's called an indirect way of turning it off. Even that really should. There's a caveat here. Right? It should be done in a way that the water that you've put to heat up on the burner is going to be used for something. You're going to use it to make a tea, a coffee, something. Because otherwise, you're heating up water, which is also bishul, and you're doing it just to turn off the fire. That shouldn't be done. So you should only do this this way of turning off the gas when you have a use for the water that you're heating up, and that use that you have to do on Yom Tov. And that's simple enough. The problem becomes when you're cooking something on Yom Tov, you made a fire. The fire is a big fire, and you're concerned the food that you're cooking there is going to be burnt. The fire is too strong. And if the fire, and it's going to end up burning the food, and you want to have this food for Yom Tov, can you lower the fire? So the problem is, Shulchan Aruch writes, even though you're allowed to, again, it's to raise the fire, kibui, says the extinguishing a fire, asur lechabot delekav Yom Tov. You're never allowed to turn off a fire, even to prevent your house from getting full of smoke, or a kedera, or even to prevent a pot from burning. So it seems to be that for Sfaradim, to put down a fire will always be asur, even if you're going to use it to cook the food. They explain the technical reasons why it's different to turning on a fire. At the end of the day, if you can cook on Yom Tov, why should it be different to actually turning on a fire, which is also on Shabbat, it'll be in the Surah Doraita. Why should that be different to extinguishing a fire, lowering a fire? They explain, but when you raise the fire, you are directly causing a benefit to make the food be cooked better. And now you're going to eat that food on Yom Tov. When you're lowering the fire, the actual malacha you're doing isn't giving the benefit to the food. You're taking away something that's going to harm it. You're taking away, the fire is too strong. You're taking away the harm. That's not directly causing the benefit. It's taking away the harm. And that perhaps was allowed on Yom Tov according to the Shulchan Aruch. The Ashkenazim here have a kula. So the Ashkenazim, the Rama writes, if you have nowhere else to put it, you haven't got any other fire, you're allowed to lower the fire to prevent your food from burning. The problem is that's the Rama, that's the Ashkenazi Psak. What do we do? So here, interestingly, both Rabbi Yosef and Rabbi Tzina Mashaul, who say different reasons, they say the same psak in the bottom line. It says, even though it sounds like, if you would open up the Shulchan Aruch, it sounds like a person is not allowed to lower the fire in order to prevent his food from getting burnt. He will say, in practice, in our fires you can. So why Shulchan Aruch was speaking about a wooden wood that was burning, and turning off wood has a potential malacha deoraita, has potential to that when you extinguish it, it creates coals, and the coals has a further use. So, in cases in kibui, when extinguishing leads to potential malacha deoraita, a biblical prohibition, that's when the Shulchan Aruch was so stringent and they said you can never do it, even when it's in order to keep your food warm, so it doesn't prevent your food from burning. But in our cases, when you have, well, either a clear metal, but more commonly as a gas, when you're turning off when you're not turning off, you're lowering the fire, making the fire a little lower. It is called extinguishing, it's called kibui, but it's not the kind of kibui, the kind of extinguishing that could ever lead to making coals. If all you're doing is lowering a gas, that's a kibui which can never have a potential malacha d'oraita, that it can never potentially come to a biblical prohibition. So that you'd be allowed to do in order to prevent the food from getting burnt, and that way to keep it cooking slowly, and you can have the food on Yom Tov with no issues. So even though you couldn't, afterwards, you won't be able to turn off the fire in total until you have to do the trick with a overflowing pot. But if it's whilst you're cooking and it's for the sake of cooking that you want to lower the fire, that is allowed according to both Rabbi Tzina Mashaul, according to Rabbi Yosef, despite the fact that Shulchan Aruch sounds like he is stringent in this. So, Shabbat Shalom to Hashem, and soon Chag Sameach in Shavuot.